the Achtung Baby album, the other being The Fly, giving us a hint of the musical changes U2 was going through. Here's The Edge.
We wanted the album to be very extreme. We didn't want it to sound in any way safe. I think music right now is too safe, generally. And, I was listening to a lot of really out there experimental dance music, and at the time, hardcore kind of guitar music, industrial music. And I just really love the energy of it, the sounds of it. And it's music that really confronts you and challenges you. And I wanted some of those kind of elements in what we were doing.
I think we'd also kind of made a decision that we were going to kind of take on technology and embrace it, which was like the opposite of what we'd been doing for, say, the Rattle and Hum record, where we said, let's strip it down and just play the songs live. So we needed to get to grips with, the kind of equipment and stuff and find the sounds that we wanted. So it was kind of learning experience in that respect.
Sensing a need to confront themselves, U2 left the cozy confines of Dublin to record Achtung Baby in what was once East Berlin, arriving on the actual day of the German unification. Initially, U2 occupied houses once reserved for visiting communist dignitaries. Adam Clayton and the Edge of U2 continue the story.
But after that, we kind of moved into the closest thing to a kind of luxury hotel in the East, and it was like right opposite the Stasi headquarters, which is like this huge building where the secret police used to kind of do all their kind of deeds. And more or less wherever you go, there's kind of cameras somewhere. And the staff were telling us in this hotel that before the kind of Stasi were dismantled, well, nobody really knows if they have been dismantled, but that everyone in that hotel was Stasi informers, that all the rooms were bugged and had cameras in them.
Do you get the feeling that you've just kind of stumbled onto the set of a 1960s Ian Fleming, James Bond movie, or does it really sink in that this was a way of life?
It's not, my reaction to it was not so much of nostalgia, but it was, if this is what these people have come through.
More of a surrealism.
Yeah, it was kind of, if that's what these people have come through, how long is it going to take them to really adjust to freedom? And they were dazed, the people were dazed. They didn't really know how to cope with it.
Well, what was great was it was like it was over. The nightmare had ended, and had arrived just at that moment in Berlin. And so everything was new. Everything was up for grabs. It was as if there were no rules anymore. And people were, as Adam was saying, a bit dazed, but really kind of waking up. And that was an interesting thing to witness. The East Germans that we saw and met, there was a little bit of confusion about quite how we lived.
What do we do next?
Like, I heard stories of people hitting West Berlin for the first time, walking into supermarkets, loading up the trolley and trying to walk out the door because they had imagined that everything was free in the West. And there was this kind of horrible dawning that, maybe the alternative to communism wasn't quite as great as they maybe had been led to believe.
Welcome back to the exclusive broadcast of U2's Zoo TV on the radio. I'm Redbeard, and one thing I wanted to know when I spoke with U2 was why they played so few shows to date on their Zoo TV tour. Here's The Edge.
Because we released the album when we did, we didn't want to have to wait until the summer to go out on the road and go straight into big stadiums. We just didn't have the stomach for that. So in making the decision to play indoors, it follows that if you're going to try and supply the demand for tickets, that means a dozen or more shows in each town, which again is something we couldn't deal with. We'd done that in Australia on the Lovetown tour, and it frankly just does not work for U2. After about the fourth or fifth show, everyone is going completely crazy. Something about the momentum of moving is, I don't know why, but it seems to be important for us. and for the crew and just for the whole touring thing. So in deciding we weren't going to supply demand, we also said, well, if we're not going to supply demand, why even pretend we are? Why not just go around the country, say hello to as many cities as we can, and then go back later and actually then try and see everyone who wants to see the show. So that's sort of what we've done. And we were hoping that in selling the tickets the way we have by telephone, that it really gave everybody a fair shot at getting tickets. And we know that there's so many people who didn't get to see this show, but we are coming back. And I hope it's going to be worth the wait.
For the first leg of their Zoo TV tour, U2 turned their show into Communication Central, filling the halls with numerous giant screen TVs and video monitors. Combining both live and pre-recorded visuals, U2 was able to perfectly capture the mood of any given song, from the frenzied assault of information during The Fly to the somber and chilling images during One and Running to Stand Still. Here's Adam Clayton and the Edge of U2.
We decided pretty much everything on the basis of what was possible. You know, if it was possible to do something, we would attempt it and try it.
Bono really had the initial inspiration for this Zoo TV thing, and he talked to us about it, and we all put forward our ideas as well. But to watch the way that team have started to mold this technology into the show, and initially it seems like it's overload, this is going to distract. But the great thing about the system that we've designed is that it is a total hands-on situation. The show is changing all the time and growing all the time, and because there's human beings operating it, there's all the subtlety and feel of human beings incorporated into what is an incredibly high-tech show. So Pete Williams, who is our principal designer and operates the lighting, and Carol Dodds, who is in charge of the vision mixers, they are learning, changing the thing all the time, and it's really every show it's getting different, you know, and better.
We didn't feel comfortable in the celebrity role, and we didn't feel comfortable in the, you know, these guys are going to save the world and they're very serious and they stand around in deserts type thing.
Still to come, we'll find out why U2 named their tour Zoo TV, and we'll have exciting information about upcoming dates for U2's return in a big way. I'm Redbeard, and you're listening to the exclusive broadcast of U2's Zoo TV on the radio. This very special broadcast of U2's Zoo TV on the radio. Fans in the New York City area are going to be thrilled to know that U2 will be opening the return of their Zoo TV tour at Giant Stadium in East Rutherford on August 11th and 13th. The song that opens the Achtung Baby album is called Zoo Station, which suggests why they named the tour Zoo TV. But according to The Edge and Adam, Zoo TV is so much more than just a label for U2's tour.
It's not just the name for the tour, it's really the name for this system that we've set up for the tour. It's like Zoo Station was like the center of Berlin and the center of transport. Zoo TV is like communication control. It's like information control. We're taking in information from outside. We're processing audio and visual information that's happening right there in the venue. And it's like this visual audio technology instrument, which gives us the flexibility to telephone out of the building, take calls in over the PA system. You've probably heard the story about Bono ordering pizza from stage. You know, in some ways,
Did it get there in 30 minutes or less?
it was 45 minutes, but we got there.
I think you get it free.
But it's in that sense, it's completely versatile.
The the indoor leg of their Zoo TV tour. Because of the mindset Bono must assume to perform that song, and because of how long it can take him to come back from that mental place, Bullet the Blue Sky has always been an extremely difficult song for Bono to do live. This time, however, Bono has taken on even more role-playing in the show. Once again, here's the Edge of U2.
On this tour, there's other places he goes, and they're just as difficult. The whole end of the show where he takes on this kind of deranged, spastic Gene Vincent in a mirror ball suit character. That's completely ironic, completely mocking of rock and roll and himself. But that takes a huge jump as well, because it is a complete role. It's not how Bono is normally at all, But the irony of that is that in that character he can sing a song like Light My Way, which on the surface musically is a pop kitsch kind of lyric. We've never, up until then, I don't think we'd ever used the word baby in a lyric, but there's like 14 or 15 in that song. But under that surface glitz, I think it's also one of the most revealing lyrics on the album.
On the first leg of their Zoo TV tour, U2 only performed songs from their 4 most recent albums. Here's what The Edge had to say when I asked why U2 left out so many of their older songs on the initial leg of their Zoo TV tour.
This Zoo TV tour, as it started to take on an identity and a momentum of its own, seemed like some of the old songs just weren't going to work. And, a lot of people were saying, why are you leaving out the old songs? Why aren't you playing anything from the first 3 albums? It's not really a conscious decision. It's more that it wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't work. So we said, we're not going to give ourselves any restrictions here. We're just going to play the material that makes sense in this context.
U2 with Bad.
In a way, the show is kind of saying, look, don't trust us.
Just around the corner, we'll explore the myth of U2. I'm Redbeard, and this is U2's Zoo TV on the radio. Around the time of the Joshua Tree album and tour, the myth of U2 reached a fevered pitch. U2 were somehow expected to know all the answers to life's mysteries, and U2 was supposed to be capable of saving the world as well. In a recent magazine interview, The Edge said that the myth of U2 was created by the media and by people's imaginations, and that it was a problem for the whole band. But Edge and Adam won't dismiss U2's part in creating this illusion.
We have to take some blame for the way this myth developed, When we finished the Joshua Tree record, we were trying to do something that had real power, and was an idea, that really had focus. But I don't think we realized quite how it was going to be almost become bigger than the band, it took off in such a way. So in that sense, we lit the touch paper, but I don't think anyone really knew what was going to happen. And once it had started, once that ball started rolling, you've no control over that.
Sure. But when you see that in print and you don't hear the way you say it, or there's not a chance for a follow-up question, it kind of almost looks like you would like to be absolved of all complicity if the media and the audience gets it wrong. And is that fair, or is it realistic?
No, it's actually I'm not kind of pointing the finger.
Saying that, no.
I'm just saying that, and it's inevitable, I suppose, to an extent.
But two-edged sword, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
That's both ways.
I'm talking about a distortion. I'm not talking about a fabrication. I'm talking about how I use the word caricature, It bears some resemblance to what we were about, but it became so flat, so one-dimensional.
We didn't feel comfortable in the celebrity role. And we didn't feel comfortable in the, these guys are going to save the world and they're very serious and they stand around in deserts type thing. And kind of with this record we said, well, look, it's rock and roll. It's meant to be fun. Let's just get out and enjoy it, and so what? We don't want... In a way, the show is kind of saying, look, don't trust us. You thought you were going to come and see, the band that gave you the Joshua Tree. We're turning all that around. We're giving you all this information. Is it true? Isn't it true? It's like we're just trying to back off a bit from being perceived as serious, when, in fact, it's always been just rock and roll to us.
We couldn't live with the way the media was writing about us. It was just so distorted. And this is like re-injecting the right amount of confusion and contradiction back into the picture, because we are full of both contradictions and confusion.
In discussing the myth of U2, it's important to note that their undying efforts to bring attention to the social issues of the day have been a major contributor to this myth. Despite U2's desire to climb down from the pedestal they'd been placed upon, they haven't forsaken this social conscience. For instance, with the single One and its evocative cover artwork, U2 are doing what they can to help fight AIDS. Adam Clayton explains.
First time we came to America, in 1980, the taxi driver was saying, I'm sorry, I can't take you that way. There's some kind of a demonstration going on. And we said, well, what's it about? He said, I don't know. There's like all these kind of fags, and they're complaining about some disease, and, nobody's kind of given them any money to sort it out. And that was like the first time I heard about it. And it was always considered a kind of small issue. But like suddenly in the 90s, it's a very real issue. And still you get the feeling that people aren't really responding to it. Not at government level. It's a kind of humane response. Whenever people kind of get into AIDS, they start talking about morality, and I don't think morality's got anything to do with people dying. I think it's a humane issue. I think there should be relief for sufferers with AIDS, and I think there should also be research. So with the proceeds of One, we are helping to finance in whatever way we can. Also, the artist involved, David Wojnarowicz, is dying from AIDS. And over the years, he's been very active in kicking up a fuss about, AIDS not being taken as a serious issue. And I think we felt we wanted to honor him and his work and take an image of the buffalo being driven to death over the cliff as a very telling apocalyptic image of what will happen if we don't find a cure for AIDS.
When Adam, Edge, Larry, and Bono set up shop in a Berlin studio to begin working on Achtung Baby, they found they were missing something. Somehow, that magical feeling that had been so much a part of their music in the past had at least temporarily deserted them. From U2, here's The Edge, and first, Adam Clayton.
Sometimes you can forget that rock and roll, it's not a job, it's a spirit. It's a certain essence that you're trying to get to. And that's what a club band has. That's what a band who's making their first record have. And when you're trying to plug back into that, like 10 or 15 years after your first kind of performance on a stage, it's hard to find that place sometimes. And I think that's what was going on in Berlin was, yeah, we can strum away and like put out a record with a few songs on it, but is it what excites us? Is it rock and roll? Is it challenging? And, we just kept at it until we found we'd got to that place.
Exactly. It's not about like hours spent, because that song One took maximum of an hour to get to a fairly close to finished arrangement. Yet there was this other song we were working on, which I ended up rewriting the music, and it became Light My Way 2 months later in Dublin. But yeah, it's about finding that place. It's about that moment, and sometimes you just sit there and you just know that it's not right, it's not happening, and there's nothing you can do about that, really.
During my conversation with the Edge and Adam Clayton of U2, they expressed how even after 16 years of working together, they're still amazed at Bono's ability to turn a phrase.
It's alchemy, how it actually happens sometimes. I mean, it's beyond me how Bono gets into the lyrics so many different levels, you know. I mean, I've been sitting in sometimes while he works on the words, just to bounce a few ideas off somebody, you know. And he'll do the same, you know, when we're working on the music. He's always there, and he's always, like, suggesting things. But it still amazes me, you know, like, I might have been there when some of these words were written, but there's levels to it that I'm still picking up. And, you know, it's not about sitting at the desk and working for hours and hours. I don't know, it's something else, you know.
Well, I always think what's, like, amazing about Bono's words is you kind of know that they're so personal to him, and yet you know that they connect with a lot of people. I mean, they reflect the band's kind of feelings as well as his, and then that seems to connect you with the whole audience out there.
He has a very hard gig as well, because most of the time, I would say 90% of the time, Bono is actually trying to work lyrics into a piece of music that already has a strong identity and a strong feeling. So it's not even like he can sit down and, you know, write some words that he wants to write today, and then we write music to it. He has loads of that. I mean, coming into this album, he had big bunches of pads of words and prose and ideas and notions, but most of that just never worked in the context of the music that we were coming up with. So he was in a position where he kind of had to go with the music, and that's hard. That's really hard.
Just cascading guitar solo. That's Until the End of the World, coming from U2's Achtung Baby album. According to The Edge and Adam, Bono wrote those words about the disciple Judas, who wrestled with his intense loyalty to both Jesus Christ and to Judas' government and society.
This was a piece that Bono had started quite a while ago. He's fascinated with those kind of great inner kind of confusions and debates, the battle between love and loyalty. These are what the great, you know, themes of all time, right?
Humankind. Yeah.
So he was fascinated with this relationship. You know, I mean, Judas is an amazing character. When you think about what he did, you try to start to see why he did it. It is an amazing thing. And he started writing just some lines about this relationship, the two characters. And then a couple of weeks into the recording of the album, he was sent this book to review by this Irish poet. What's his name? Brendan Connelly. Called The Book of Judas. And it was like completely out of the blue. And his entire book of poetry is kind of this theme of this conflict. There was one line from Brendan Connelly's book that really became almost, it was an idea that seemed so in tune with what we were doing. And it's a line in one of the poems which goes, "If you want to serve the age, you must betray it." We used that as an idea for some of what we were doing, you know. In a sense, that was part of what we were trying to do with this new album. And I suppose if you see that the truth lies between two different points of view. You can't really say exactly where it is. And U2 right now is in that position. We're not denying the past. We're not turning our back on our previous records. But this record is so different. It represents the two extremes of what we are. And somewhere in between the two is really where we stand.
Among the many new characteristics of U2 on Achtung Baby is Bono's use of his voice in falsetto. The Edge and Adam elaborate.
Vocally, this is probably his most interesting record. He was experimenting with other tones in his voice. For instance, Until the End of the World is an example of taking a risk. You know, Bono could easily have taken it up like a few keys, and he would have been in the Pride in the Name of Love range of his voice, and it would have been probably much more anthemic, much more the usual U2 kind of sound. But he wanted to try and keep it low. He wanted to use this lower range and
make it intimate rather than anthemic.
It really works.
On their first swing through North America, U2 showed off a stage presentation that had to be seen to be described. Come to think of it, there was so much happening that even if you did see it, you may need to see it again to get the messages. And that, says The Edge and Adam Clayton, is okay with U2.
I think people do need to see it a few times.
Part of it is that point, though, is you know, when we go into the fly, there's this barrage of information and random words. People come away seeing the most unusual phrases that really aren't there. Like we had one journalist who saw "Bomb Japan Now."
And printed that
printed in the review.
The Japan press, right?
Another girl,
yeah, it kind of nearly caused a diplomatic incident.
It was a bit heavy. And this other girl I spoke to recently said, "Why have you got everyone's a rapist on your video walls?" And I scratched my head for a minute and remembered that in fact what it says is everyone's a racist except you. But you know, people can completely misinterpret it, and almost that's the point, is like there's all this information, but is information the truth? I don't think necessarily. Information is what's out there, you know, and information is what seems to be ruling the world right now. Information about your politicians, information about the Gulf War, you know, the CNN news reporters right there on the scene giving you information, but what does it mean?
But is it true even?
Exactly. Is it any more true than, you know, what you might hear down in the bar, you know, talking to some guy? You know, I don't know, is the answer. But information doesn't not necessarily equal truth. And in this case, we're playing with that. You know, we're not trying to make a heavy point of it, but it's like we're quite playfully just messing with this concept of information.
After all the frenetic energy of both the Achtung Baby album and Zoo TV tour, I was curious why U2 chose to end both with the haunting and disparaging tune Love is Blindness. And this is what The Edge told us.
We had to figure out some way of stopping the audience singing 40.
Boom with it.
And that's not easy. No, we you know, it's also, we didn't want to end the show like, it was all a bad dream, you know, that kind of thing. Oh, it's all right now. So, do you know, I think Love is Blindness is also it's a very dark song, but it's real, and it's kind of positive in that sense as well. But it's crushingly real and crushingly heavy at the same time. But it was a decision. We had thought about it before this tour started. Like, how are we going to end the set? Are we going to do 40 again? No, we can't do that. We've done that, you know, on 3 tours of America. It would just be so obvious and so wrong. And it just seemed like, well, why not go for it? Why not go the exact opposite, the extreme of 40? And that's Love is Blind.